Okay. My name is Briesen, and I'm Program Chair at Central Piedmont Community College of Web Design and Database Administration. And I have a die-hard Moodle. Some people call me the Moodle evangelist. I would take that claim for North Carolina. I don't know about other states. I've done presentations all over the country, and started using it about 2003. And I know Jack, and I think I've met Bill online before. This is the first time we've met in person. I don't recognize the rest of you, although, have we ever met before? Well, welcome to this. I'm hoping to learn a little bit about you as we go through. And what I'm trying to do is turn a 3-hour presentation that I did yesterday into 2 hours. So I have to think about what happened yesterday and cut some of it down. It's a slightly smaller group, but originally they said there'd be about 6 people, so the fact that we have more of that is good news. But it's a little bit free-form. I don't have a scripted thing. The idea is I want you to understand certain concepts so that you can walk out of here and get busy, rather than say, okay, step 1, do this, step 2. So I need you to think about what we're doing and not worry about exactly what it is. And I'm going to ask you to be a little creative in the process. So I'm going to start with about 20 minutes or so. And any of you real good on keeping time? Better than me? Because the clock is here, I guess. I want to be done with this portion of it by noon. And what it is, I'm going to talk to you about Moodle.org and the software, and so I'll give you an overview of where this all comes from before we get right into the tool. Is that cool? Okay, so the way I work is if you ask a question, you get a candy bar. We have Twix and Snickers. And if you have a constructive criticism, like you need to speed up or cover this, you get 2 candy bars, right? So you really all need to have candy bars by lunchtime. Okay? Any questions or concerns before we get started? Yes, sir.
I'm not on the side.
Okay, so you want to open up a web page? Oh, you're there. Scroll to the bottom, and it says Moodle Fridays. Right there. Just click on that. Say you want to self-enroll. Say yes. What's it say? Just hit continue. And you probably want to restart your browser. Not too important right now, because we're not actually going to be in this site. In fact, I'd rather that you, unless you're going to go to Moodle.org with me, I'd rather you just shut off your monitors and watch what I'm doing, because I'm going to just show you some general concepts. So let me just get a sense of who you are first. Who here teaches? Who administers? Okay, for those who didn't raise their hand, what do you do?
Maybe a specialist.
Okay, so sort of instructional development?
Also teaching.
Okay. It's hard not to teach, regardless of what you do, isn't it? You'd have kids and you're a teacher. How many of you use Blackboard? BRCC? Sakai? Any others? Anybody got Angel, Desire to Learn, any of those? Okay, I was surprised yesterday. How many of you are familiar with the patent issue in Blackboard? Only 2 of you. Well, the rest of you should know that Blackboard has patented e-learning. And the day they got the patent a few months ago, they sued Desire to Learn. And it's caused an uproar around the world, as it rightly should, because instances of e-learning exist back to, what, 1950? As soon as there was there was e-learning. Even before there was there was e-learning.
The government issued a patent.
The government issued a patent, which just shows you how well they're paid. But, so they're going to be challenged to the hilt. The problem that it does for the open source community and for the community that's interested in sharing applications and things is it creates more FUD. Who knows what FUD is? FUD stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And in the marketing and consulting world, that's what you do when you want people who are typically conservative to not choose something innovative or creative. So there's an old slogan in IT, nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. The idea is that, well, it may not be the best, but that's what everybody does, so we can't be blamed for being different. If you do something different, you take risks. So you can go around and people can say, well, Blackboard's got this patent, and that's going to mess up all the other vendors, and therefore we should buy Blackboard, without evaluating the platforms on their merits. So that hurts Moodle at a certain level. On the other level, those who are in the know realize that the whole thing is a crock. That's another discussion. So Moodle was started by a man named Martin Duguiamas. He was a graduate student, I believe, in instructional technologies, and he was teaching also and had a strong computer science background, and he was using WebCT in Perth, Australia. I don't know if it's Queensland or one of these universities. And in a bit of frustration, he said, I can do better than this. And he wrote some code, and he put it out and sent some emails to some colleagues and said, hey, give this a try. And almost immediately he started getting responses of people saying, well, that's cool, what about this? What about that? What about the other thing? And he started improving on it. And from that, things started to move very quickly, and quickly is in internet terms. So in the period of, from first experimentation in 2001, 2002 to today, we've seen tremendous jumps. And somebody calculated online that's 2 million man-hours of labor have been invested in a package because you've got people from all over the world contributing. And to give you an example before I jump right into it, I was working at 2 or 3 in the morning. So whenever I work in the middle of the night, I see Martin, who's the guy who runs it all, logged into Skype because he's in Australia, so their hours are opposite. So when I'm working in the middle of the night, he's in his work day. So I see him, and I don't want to bug him because I know he gets 500 emails a day. But sometimes I just have a little issues. So I sent a quick note, asked him a question. I said, hey, if you're coming stateside, let me know if you need any help or anything. He said, well, we need to be able to test the new version. And I mentioned an issue I had with one of the things at our school. And he said, well, did you submit a bug? Because anybody can submit bugs. There's a whole bug tracker. You go create an account, and all of you in this room, if you have a bug, you can submit it, and it will be tracked. Now compare that to what you're used to. And you can go and look at the status of that bug, and you can see who it was assigned to and what priority it has, and you can assign your own priority, and then they may adjust that. And if you think the font is a major problem, they're probably going to reduce it to minor. But you can have your own bugs in there. And he said, well, did you submit a bug? And I said, no. I said, well, how do you expect us to do anything about it? So I felt so guilty. At 2 in the morning, I went to their testing server and started beating on 1.7, and I found 7 bugs, because it wasn't even released yet. It was still in development. And I submitted all of them. And so over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've seen some people written back and said, could you follow up? I didn't understand what you meant. A guy told me I need to be less wordy in my explanations because he's got 3,000 bugs to deal with. Somebody took dispute with that was really a bug or a feature, and I had to prove that it really was a bug. And in the process of that, I've now seen every one of these resolved, which is kind of cool to see that you found that bug where the math wasn't right or there's an error screen or whatever, and then to go back and not only see that who fixed it, when they fixed it, but then have a tester come in after and verify that the fix worked on something that you referenced. And that's neat, because that's empowerment. So, Bill, go ahead.
Who's actually trying to correct these bugs?
The development team.
So it's the actual development team.
Well, so here's the thing. I'm on Moodle.org, right? Moodle.org is the go-to place. And Moodle.org is, I don't know what the equivalent of non-profit is in Australia, but it's not a profit foundation. It's an organization like the people who do Linux or like the people who do Apache and so on. And their goal is to make Moodle successful and good. Now, Moodle.com is the commercial arm, if you will, of Moodle, which is run by Martin as well. And he has a permanent office in Australia with a full-time staff there of about 5 people. But then he has other people that are essentially paid ad hoc consultants around the world. So, for example, what school are you from, sir? Okay, so you're from here. Supposing you say, we love Moodle, but we're having problem getting the 10% reports to look the way the auditors at state want them. So we've got a grant to solve that problem. And so you go to Martin and you say, hey, we've got $1,000, but we just need this little query written. Well, he may have somebody in Spain who's just an expert at the database, and he says, this is all they need, and they'll write a little module and email it to you, and you drop it in that folder, and bang, you've got your 10% reports. So you send the money to Moodle.org through PayPal or .com, and then he'll wire transfer and pay that guy in Italy or Paraguay or wherever it is. So there's a lot of consulting and there's a lot of volunteer work. There are people from schools who've taken under their wing one module. The guy in Germany is responsible for the gradebook module. This other guy is responsible for the assignments module. Now the downside of that is you sometimes end up with slightly different looks and feels for the different pieces. The upshot is its tremendous power, because if you go to a big company, like even Microsoft or WebCT or Blackbird or any of these, you say, how many actual developers are working on X right now? It's not very many. They have far more salespeople and secretaries and office managers and janitors than they do people developing Microsoft Word, which is interesting. It's a statement about the whole economy, if you will. And the term that I just discovered in Wired that refers to this is crowdsourcing. You've heard of outsourcing. Well, crowdsourcing is where you just say to the whole world, help me with this, and I may or may not pay you. Maybe you even put out, if you can solve this problem, it's $500. And somewhere in the world, somebody knows how to do that, and it's a lot more efficient than hiring you who know nothing about it to sit there and figure it out for 2 weeks and then hope you have a solution 2 weeks later when he's done it already and has the answer in his back pocket. Right? So that's what's happening. So I take you to Moodle.org first because I want you to have the foundation of what this is about. Because it's not just a software package. You go to many, many workshops and they say, here's a software, it's on CD, you can download it and run it, and isn't it cool? Half of what Moodle is relates to the community. Because without the community, it wouldn't exist. And it's the community that compensates and deals with the question of who's going to support it, or who's responsible, or is it stable, or how do I use it. So Moodle.org starts out, just a quick explanation, beautiful link to open source. If you don't know, who is comfortable with the idea of open source software? A couple of you are. Those who did not raise your hand, it's time to be comfortable. Linux, which is open source operating system, runs 70% of all web servers in the world. And it's been around a long time. Apache is that 70%. It's the web server that runs those websites. There's many, many open source tools that are very well mature. And so the whole idea of there's no one to support it, or it's not stable or whatever, just anytime an administrator throws that at you, it's clear that they haven't done their homework. And you need to counter that as effectively and as politically correct as you can. Chances are they're a Microsoft head who wants to just buy the $50,000, whatever it is. So use that, and it's a great article about it. Sound pedagogical principles. So this was built by an educator for educators. And so the one thing I do want to emphasize, and hopefully after my time here, you'll be clear on it, this site is all about people just like you. So who are you? Who would come to this workshop? Educators. But not all educators. What kind of educators? Not really. I mean, do we have any high school people in here? High school's really, Moodle's really big in high schools. Why do you think that is? What's that?
I'm in elementary school.
There you go.
I'm here because the teachers might want to know about it.
Right, but what kind of teachers want to know about Moodle? Want to stay current and
Distance learning, but
interested in distance ed.
also ones that just want to build online communities.
And interested in online. And I would say who have a slight technical bent. Because people who have no technical bent are still trying to stick to paper and number 2 pencils. So, technical educators interested in online learning who want to keep their skills current. That's you guys, and that's everybody on this site. So I challenge you to find any other site in the world that brings this many people like you together in one place, and we'll see how many that actually is. So, let's see. And I'm just showing you these links so that you can go to Moodle.org anytime and follow them. I mean, if I give you a sheet of paper, all it's going to do is list what's on the home page of Moodle.org. Okay? So those first two are important. The Moodle demonstration course, or courses, they're in different languages, provide a sampling of every feature in Moodle. So if you want to see a label, if you want to see an assignment, if you want to see a quiz, if you want to see a timed quiz, if you want to see a choice, an anonymous choice, there's just a big long list. So I could have imported that and given it to you here, but I don't need to because it's already there. And any of you, in fact, I'd encourage you to go, maybe even during the break, go here and create an account. You'll have to have access to your email to verify it so they don't get spammed. But you need to have an account there. You need to go back and just check it out. And if you're using Moodle in any way, shape, or form, have that as your toolbox. Or if you're just interested in discussing pedagogy, great stuff going on here. So, and Moodle Buzz takes you to a bunch of press releases. So any doubt about, like, is this serious, go find the article in New York Times or Wall Street Journal or Wired or whatever the articles are, Education Weekly. There's plenty there. So then I want to jump you down to the community, because that's why we're here. Over 130,000 registered users. That means 130,000 people like you went to this site and took the time to create an ID and a password and put in a valid email and authenticate that account. So, let's look at who they are. So these are people from around the world, and actually this does not load the ones that have the default icon, so this is only loading those people who have actually changed their avatar or their icon. And it's interesting, because if I begin to hover over these, this looks like Art Later. Guess where Art Later works? Aiken, South Carolina. Let's see if I'm right. I've met him once. Art from the U.S. He teaches German in Aiken High School. And he's a huge Moodle fan and does some part-time work for Moodle Rooms as a Moodle mentor. And he's just a great all-around guy. Now, how do I know him? I know him because of this forum. So when I met him, I was surprised he was so short, because I didn't know he was short from being online. But I knew he taught German. I know he takes his group to Germany every year, all from the online community. Don't know these people. Let's see where they are. UK, Vietnam, Spain, UK, France, UK, Australia, Italy. You get the gist. Now, we also look at the time of day, because certainly as you go through the day, you see those names change. This is in the last login order, right? And so on. So I look down, I know Art, this guy, is it Tim? No, Tony. This guy I see a lot. And who else do I know here? Michelle Moore is giving a presentation that competes with this presentation this very instant in another room. And she lives in Kansas, and she works in Virginia. So when she's done here, she's going to drive to Greenville, pick up her husband, or Greensboro, and drive up to Charlottesville. And let's see. This is, she helps run Moodle rooms. No, actually she does a Chardell Bush, and I think she runs this Egyptian hieroglyphs thing, and so on. So, and this is Martin himself, the founder, and he's almost as tall as I am, almost exactly the same age too. So these are just random people that happen to have logged in. So this is really a tight community. If you're involved in it, you get to know a lot of them. So let's go a little bit further. 160 countries. Were any of you born in another country? Where's the last place any of you traveled? What's the name of the country?
Germany.
Germany. Okay, so let's scroll down. These are all the countries that have Moodle installations. And you can't see it here. Well, you can. See the little yellow dots? Those are concentrations of Moodle installs. I don't think there's enough, that would have to be 14,000. So this number actually is up to 17,000. When I first started doing this presentation, it was 3,000 or 4,000. So we've seen it grow quite dramatically. So anyone who says, well, nobody's using that. How many sites do you think use Blackboard, really, if you add them all up? 200? 500? 1,000? Worldwide? How many languages do they support? 3, 5? Look at where Blackboard has offices. 4 countries? You know. So, we're going to Germany. A, B, C, D, E, F. Germany. Now, this is not scripted. I didn't go say, hey, let's look at Germany and see if these are good sites here. These are places in Germany that are using Moodle. This is alphabetical, so I managed to make it to B with the first scroll. So how many do you think there are? Fair amount. So let's click on this new one. It's probably pretty boring because they wouldn't have had time to style it. And there's Moodle for you. Looks like they've already got a couple of courses. They've picked just an out-of-the-box theme. Let's have a look. If they have a smiley face, it means a lot of people have voted for their design. Let's try Edu-Go Learning. We're getting redirected, hopefully to another Moodle site. And you can do this now. If you go to Senegal, there's probably only 2 or 3 in our tracks, right? I say that because my family's in Senegal right now. But it's all in German. And notice it says Ihre Position, which is your position, the formal you, in German. So when you use that language pack, it changes all the menus. So Arabic, Farsi, Urdu, Kanji, Japanese, you name it. So think about it for an immersion language course. So that just gives you an idea, and I invite you to go play with this page just because it's a lot of fun to look at who's using it. And this is all of them in order. Right? Now some of these, in truth, are mom and pop, maybe homeschoolers. Why not have a Moodle site, right? It's free if you can put it on a server. Some of them are Sunday schools, church groups, running clubs, you name it, but why not? Because anything that's good enough to do a whole class online can do a lot of other things too, like discussion forums, like collaborative learning projects, like keeping track of members. We have a Model UN, I'm a faculty advisor to a club. Where do you keep the student phone numbers and their addresses, and who's the president, who's the secretary, and how you do elections? It can all be done in Moodle. You just call them participants or members instead of students, right? And there's a setting for that. So that's the sites. A couple more things here.
You're at 12 o'clock, by the way.
12 o'clock, okay. And what time is lunch break, by the way? 12:30. Okay, give me 5 more here. So here's the statistics. And if this doesn't speak for itself, I don't really know what does. This is about where I got involved. So you see a trend? If you were an investor, might be time to get in. Now, fortunately, since it's not an investor, you don't have to worry about the bottom falling out. Because if you understand how open source works, the source code is available everywhere around the world. So even if, God forbid, North Korea took out Australia, the code exists. So even if Moodle.org disappears, there's the software base, and the community is tight enough that we would just regroup in the US or Italy or whatever and start again. But we wouldn't be starting from scratch. We'd be starting from here. We would just rename the organization and have the same code and keep building on it, because it's all open and none of it's copyrighted or patented. Okay, so what's that up to? September 2006, we're up 17,000. That's a significant number. For Microsoft Word, that's nothing, right? But find what software packages have that many people using it that are just like you. And what software package can you all point to that has this many people using it that, other than Office or Windows, that's your day-to-day tool? I guess I should let you answer. Are there any others?
No.
I guess a lot of people use Skype, right? But they're not educators necessarily. A lot of people use Flickr, but there are all kinds of people. But educators interested in distance learning, find me that many people. So what I'm going to do is log in here to my account, and I again encourage you to get your own. And I just want to show you the participants. Who's here? I showed you the pictures. But I'd like to give you an idea of how active this place is, because there's a discussion forum on each item. So if you have a question about quizzes or how to do the weighting of your gradebook, go check here. Now first, it's polite to search the forums and see if somebody's already asked and answered the question, because there's many, many posts. But second, I don't know why it's taking... A lot of times the challenge with speed is, you know, it's over the web. This server is probably in Australia, and so we're going out of the network here, across the world and into the network there, and you never know if it's their server or this network or your machine or what have you, because this is longer than I'm comfortable with. But so what I want to show you is how many people have logged in with their authenticated accounts in the last 24 hours on this one site. Remembering again, who are these people? More than that. The right answer is they're just like us. They're people like us. Because you come to this conference to be with people like you and to collaborate and share ideas. Any day, no? Go ahead, sir.
I have a question about the hosting of this. Do most people just have Moodle host it for them, and they have to have their own web server? Or
Great question. So the hosting issue usually comes up at the end of the class, but I'll go ahead and address it now. Moodle is an enterprise-level application that runs on the web, so it requires a server and a web server. It can be shared. You can have it as one of many applications. It runs best on LAMP. For those of you who don't know what LAMP is, it's just an acronym that stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, and it's basically the open-source platform. Because Linux is free, Apache is free, that's the environment that runs most of the internet. MySQL is free, it's a database. And by the way, when I was chatting with Martin that night, he said that Microsoft has paid him to make it work with SQL Server, which is Microsoft's database. So that's pretty cool, because that means it's getting the attention of other people, because Microsoft wants people to buy SQL Server. But it runs so nicely on MySQL, what's the motivation? You'd have to hack it. So they paid him to do the hacks so that they can say, we now support MySQL and Postgres and SQL Server. And I'm sure something similar will happen with Oracle. And then P is PHP, which is the scripting language that it uses. So if you want an account just to play with, you could find any old Pentium 2 or Pentium 3 and run it on your own machine at home. And if you wanted, like, it's probably against the rules of your cable provider, but you could use no IP to route traffic into your basement. But if you want to use it for a class, you probably want to have it on a proper server somewhere. So my recommendation is you get a hosting account. The cheap ones are $5 a month, right? Like a smallorange.com or a DreamHost. DreamHost is $6.97 a month or $7.95 or what have you. And that's for small time. If you want to get serious and your school is going to do it, either you have your infrastructure people do it for you, or you have the expertise and you can do it and have them point the domain to your server, or you hire a company like Remote Learner, which is a Moodle partner, and just outsource the whole thing. They manage everything, installation, upgrade, virus protection, so on and so forth, and they give 10% of their revenue back to the foundation, which is good. But you pay a premium for that because they know what they're doing, and that's all they do is Moodle hosting and support and training.
You know how much that runs per month?
It really depends on your usage. The lowest end account, I think, is in the $600 a year range, which is totally reasonable if you're, say you ran 10 classes, that would be, what, $60 a class for spring, summer, and fall, so you'd actually be running 30 classes. I mean, it's chump change compared to the cost of this classroom or the bulb of that projector. I mean, it's like a quarter of a projector, right? You all have been through replace the bulbs. Whose budget is that in? Okay, and that's something we could revisit. But talk to Michelle, because she represents Remote Learner. She may even come in on the second part of the session. And But you can get started so easily. I have a personal site on just one of these cheap hosting companies, and there's a thing called Fantastico that allows you to install any of these things. One click, boop, 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 boop. I'm an administrator. I've got people there. Yes, ma'am?
Just kind of going along with it. So, am I understanding correctly that Linux, we have to run, we can't run any Windows?
Well, I guess you could. The question is why, given that you could run this on a Pentium 3. Well, I mean, you can't find a 5-year-old box somewhere.
No, I'm just wanting to get all the information.
The challenge is, I mean, see, there's LAMP, which is Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, and I don't mean to get too technical, so I apologize, but I'll just finish that thought. Then there's WAMP, which is Windows, Apache, MySQL, PHP. Then there's WIM, which is Windows IIS, which is the Windows version of a web server, MySQL, PHP. In theory, you could go to WISP, which would then be SQL Server, PHP. I'm not getting rid of PHP, but PHP is meant to be run on Apache. So I guess you could, but I'm ultimately wondering if it would be worth the headache.
Okay, thank you.
But there's a lot of discussion about that here, because I'm not the technical guy. I know enough to talk about it, but I don't sit there and do it. And I wish I knew Linux, but I don't. I just know that it works very smoothly. And somebody asked yesterday about speed. He said, well, you know, so-and-so said Moodle was slow. Well, that's kind of like saying, well, John's car is slow. Well, that could be true because John's car has no gas, or John's car is in traffic, or John's car is missing a tire. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the motor. So it totally depends on the bandwidth and on the server. Because if you put Blackboard on 7 servers like we do at Central Piedmont, and you put Moodle on 1, and then you hit them both with the same traffic, that's not really a fair comparison. But put Blackboard on 1, including the database, and put Moodle on 1, and it's just no comparison. Same CPU, same chip. And you can verify that with any administrator in the state or in the country, and it's just a no-brainer. Okay, so let me just finish up with this. I'm going to go to the Using Moodle course. So again, you have an account, or you can visit as a guest. And the course is just a place where everybody talks about Moodle, and what I want to do is take you to the participants page. And here's the strength. I'll talk about this while it's loading. Every Moodle course has participants. Those are the students that are enrolled, and the teachers. And it calls them participants, and you can set it up so that with one click you can see who's in your class. But you can also see how long it's been since they last logged on. And that's a powerful tool for distance learners, because I can go and see that these 3 people have been here in the last 3-4 hours, but these people haven't been here in 4 days. What does that say to you when you're teaching an online course and somebody has not logged in a week? That's kind of like missing a week of class, isn't it? It's one thing to not log in every 3 days, but not log in for a week, it's like you missed Tuesday class and you missed Thursday class. So my cutoff is 9 days, because 9 days is, if you were coming to a Tuesday class, you would have missed 2 weeks of class. So you don't log in for 9 days, I want you to drop my class. There's really no point. So these are all the people who are online right now in the last 5 minutes. So online they're probably more like 50 or 100, but these are just in the last 5 minutes. And Tim Allen is one of the guys. No, that's Tim Hunt. Tim Allen is a name I see here a lot. And there's me. And then here are people who haven't created their own avatars yet, so they're probably kind of just exploring. But I'm going to click on Tim to find out a bit more about him. And this page is available. You've all done it yourself. You have a profile page. And when you spend a little more time, you actually put your information in there. And then you can put in, if you use things like Skype, there's not much there, but in mine I have my Skype ID, my AOL Instant Messenger, my Yahoo. I don't have an ICQ account, so I don't use that. I have a link to my website. I have a link to my faculty webpage. I have my address and my phone number, and I ask my students to give me that, because they're more likely to give me a good cell phone number at the beginning of class than our system is to have an accurate phone number from 2 years ago. And that number is not available to other participants, only to teachers. So I can read all about him, and I'll ask you again, who are these people? Well, what's he working on? Master's dissertation in e-learning. Kind of like you guys, right? Same kind of people. And he was a professor of the English language and literature. Probably some of you teach English. Certainly in the lower grades, you have to teach all kinds of topics together. And notice he mentioned LAMP. You now know what that means, right? And see how server is gray and project is gray and certificate is gray? Those are hot words. So on this server, anywhere those words appear, you can click on it and get a glossary definition or links to another resource of the same name. So we click on LAMP, or we click on server, and this goes to, I think, to the glossary module. Or, so he's defined server, if you didn't know what a server was. And that's a built-in feature. So how long has it been? We go here. And I'm disappointed with the speed of this. I think we'll find that our site's a lot faster. And this may just be the traffic in this geographic region. But it's a good point. I accidentally went back to the home page. So I'd like to, because you'll be dealing with this. People call this a breadcrumb trail. It's really not, because the bread got eaten by the birds, and Hansel and Gretel couldn't use them. So think of it as a navigation bar. And it's also not a breadcrumb because it doesn't show how you got there. It shows where you are. You understand the distinction? You got there through a series of screens, but that's not necessarily the best way to get back. So we're in the participants page, even though I clicked on him. I never clicked on participants and went to him, and that's beautiful because it makes it so close. If you use Blackboard, you'll notice if the students make a home page, it's hard to find it. It's several clicks to get to their profile to learn about it. Moodle, it's one click. So this is this guy, and notice he has a website, and again, all of these people are educators in some way, shape, or form. I go to participants, and now I can see, and I see this with my students as well, I see all of the people and when they last accessed, and I can sort that chronologically, but it defaults to most recently. I can sort by first name or last name or town or country. So I can find everyone in Germany, or I can find everyone in Swahili. And so how many pages, there are about 20 people on this page, say 25. How many pages do you think I have to go in order to get to 24 hours? Meaning, how many people have logged in the last 24 hours? Take a guess.
It says right there 10,000.
Well, that's how many users are in total.
Oh, that's how many people.
And these go away after 60 days. So remember the earlier figure was 130,000. These are people who have logged in the last 60 days. So I just jump forward. I'll go to, say, 18, which is about 400 people. And so about 400 people have logged in the last 8 hours. But you can extrapolate from that. If I jump to 24, we're probably up towards about 1,200%. It's a lot of people to access a distance learning website in one time period from all over the world. Just look at the countries. Okay, so that's Moodle.org. There are a couple other cool things here, like there's the demonstration course, there's a teacher playground. You can log in with just a demo account and beat on it as a teacher, but you're going to get your own space here. So, I'm now 13 minutes over on that. Any questions about Moodle.org? I know you want a candy bar, although you are going to lunch. No? You ready to move along? Okay, so you're all at this site, blueridge.ntmug.net. And you're all in this Moodle Friday course, right? But you are in as students. So you see what a student sees, and I see what a teacher sees. And the difference is pretty subtle. What is it right now?
Well, Wikipedia for starts.
You don't have Wikipedia?
We do.
You do? I don't? Sure we're in the same course?
I don't have.
It's called MUFU 101. Do the rest of you see what I have?
Oops, never
Except for
mind.
Bill. Bill's in another course.
Never mind. I've been navigating. Sorry.
So the way you know where you are is the navigation bar. Home is the home of this Moodle installation. So typically that's kind of your school Moodle home. The next one over is this course. The next one over is subs directly to that course. So whenever you're in doubt about where you are or how to get back, go up there. Avoid hitting the back button. Use those buttons to get around, or use those links. So we have a news forum. So I'm going to do this as a teacher. How do I know I'm a teacher? And how do you know you're not a teacher? I have a lot more stuff under administration, right? Anything else? One key item.
Turn editing on.
Right, that's the magic button. So that's how you know if you're a teacher or if you're not. If you don't have that button, you're not a teacher. So when your admin says, hey, I set you up and you log in, if you don't see that button, they just put you in as a student, which doesn't really help you. But I want you to see how it is from a student perspective. And what I'd like, who here has a stopwatch? Do we have a stopwatch? I'm going to set up like the 3 or 4 things I do at the very beginning of a course that I've turned into a template that I do for every course. I'm going to do it quickly enough that you can see how fast it is with just a little bit of narration. And then after the break, you're going to have your own teacher course and you're going to do that. Because this section, the top section, only exists for, there's one section per course of the top. But these, you can have as many as you want. So I can only do the top section here. You'll all would all need your own top section. But so you just watch what I'm doing. I'm going to narrate a little bit. I want you to try and follow. I'm going to go as quickly as I can and still be coherent. So somebody got to take a time. I see 12:16. So I mark it, set, go. I turn editing on. I don't like news form. I like it to say news and announcements, uppercase. Okay, so this is the way I communicate with my students. I don't allow them to reply because this is my way of pushing out information. I force everyone to be subscribed, which means after I post, I'll have a limited editing time and then it will be sent out. And I want read tracking on all of my forums so you know what you read and what you didn't. I don't care about course upload limit because it's me, so I'm not going to abuse it. I'm not going to use ratings. I don't care about groups, and I want it to be visible from the start. Save the changes. Now look where I am. I'm in the forums area, but I want to go back to the main course. This shows me what students will see if they click on that. This shows me what I'll see. I can add a new topic. You're all in this course, so I'll say, welcome to Moodle Fridays. So I have now posted my first posting, and in about half an hour this will show up in your email inbox, assuming that you put a valid email in your profile. But you can go see it at any time on the main course page. Here's news and announcements. So I invite you all to hit F5, which refreshes your page. And you should see this, and go ahead and click on it, and you'll see there's one announcement. Cool? So I'm going to keep right on going. So you see that was with me talking. That was about 2 minutes. Without me talking, that's about 30 seconds. So that counts slow. So now I'm going to add another form. These are what I always do in my course. This is called the class discussions form. This is a standard form, as opposed to a single simple discussion, which is one thread, where you post a question and everybody answers it, for example. Or each person is allowed one post, which I do for homework assignments, because I don't want them to post two. I'll get confused about which one to grade. Standard form, really no restrictions. Use this for all non-personal, private Don't sign it because this is just instructions. Discussions and replies are allowed. Anyone can post, anyone can reply. I force initial subscription. That means initially everyone will get emails from this, but they can turn that off. Whereas with the news and announcements, they could not. So if they really don't feel like they're benefiting from the general discussion, it's kind of like going to class and putting on a headset. Like, no, I don't want to hear any of that. I encourage you, so you have to actively go out of your way to avoid it. Otherwise, you get those posts. I always turn on tracking. Attachment size, I might want a screenshot if they had a question, but I don't want them to throw up these massive files, so I'll leave it at 500K, which is enough to get a big screenshot, not a bitmap. Do I want to use ratings? I might, like people to give a thumbs up or thumbs down, but not yet for now. And I want to show it, save changes. So again, that's the instructions. Go back to the home page, you get the idea. If you refresh, you'll see that. And I'll do one more. And class coffee shop. Social forum. Got a joke, a late night inspiration or funny website. Posted it here. This is for all non-class discussion and not knowledge. Don't need my name again because it's just instructions. Discussion replies. Do not force everyone to be subscribed. Although in this case, I like them to get to know each other, so I'll go ahead and say initially as well. So you're going to get the first few jokes, but then you may say this is a waste of my time. I find that these kind of things open up the class to what's going on. And read tracking also turn on. Attachment size, people like to upload funny pictures and things, sure, I'll allow that. And for ratings, what the heck, give them a little extra credit. Students can see everyone's ratings and everyone can raise posts. And the scale, I'll give it like 5 points. So if you go in, you tell some funny jokes, what have you, and people can rate each other, and it's a few bonus points. And I'll probably mark that as extra credit in my gradebook. So it won't hurt anybody, but if you did something there, it'll help just a tiny bit. And the gradebook can be weighted, so that 5 points could really only be 0.5%, if that's how you want it. So now refresh, and here's how that looks. There's one other thing, or two other things I like to do at the top of my course. This is a label, and this label is built in to the top of each section, including the main section. So by clicking that, instead of adding a label here, as I would do normally, it's there automatically, but it's blank. So I click this, and I get a WYSIWYG editor. And so, here I say welcome, and I like uppercase, welcome to Moodle Fridays. And I want it to be a header 1, the largest header in HTML. I want it centered, and I'd like it to be colored. And we'll go for like an indigo now, right? And I save that, and it looks like so. But, you know, I want some kind of header or banner. So I go back to edit this, and you're going to do this, so watch what I'm doing. And I want to insert an image, but I would like the image before the text, above it. So I click the image, and what it does is it takes me to the file management area of my course. But notice I have no images, which is kind of a bummer. So how do you think I get one there? Oh, I got to stop. I'm teaching again, and I'm just trying to show you how quickly I can do this. I browse, and I go to my documents, and I go to my pictures, and I go to sample pictures, and I find that water lilies one that I like so much. And I upload it, and I click on it, and it fills in that, and I give it a text. I say pretty picture, because we're required to do that for ADA, usually not in caps. And I click OK, and now it's awfully big. And the problem with awfully big pictures is you get that, which is probably not what you want your course to be made up of. So I can edit again, and bad HTML, but not too bad for teachers. I can do things like resize it, like so. And I actually want it to be as wide as the window will allow, but a lot narrower. And you normally would bring the publisher would have a graphic that came with the textbook or something. And so this is on its own line. I'll do that, or I'll do a shift enter like that. Save that, and then probably didn't want that shift enter. This is the way it looks is all determined by the style sheet that's there. So you sometimes want to experiment, you get a feel of it. And then I'll indent these slightly. And I've lately this semester felt like indenting in a diagonal form, just to show kind of order of priority. And then one last thing, which I now include on every course, which I'm a big fan of, is I add an assignment. And I make this assignment extra credit. And I call it such. I say extra credit for course debugging. Find a problem with the course. Link directly to it here with an exclamation. And I allow up to 100. That way each time they go in there, I can do another 10 or 5. Or if it's a new course that has a lot of errors, I figure there's probably about 50 errors, so I'll give them 2 points each, and they can find them all. And I might make that worth 5% on their final. Most students don't do it, but those who do are very helpful. They're typically the students are going to get an A anyway. So I'm not really risking anything, but it takes away, this time when they see a bug, instead of saying, what a crappy teacher, they say, ooh, extra point. So it shifts the burden. So I'll do 100, I leave it available the whole time. I don't do upload a file, I do an online text. All I want is for them to give me a link. And on the next page, I allow resubmitting because I want them to keep adding things they find. I want an email alert if they submit something, and I want to be able to comment and say I didn't find it or what have you, and continue. And so now, go back to the home page, and I'm going to indent that as well, just because I'm looking for any stylistic devices I can get. And go ahead and hit refresh. And you now have what I would put at the beginning of every course I do in my program area and what I encourage everyone else to do. Now, any ideas why I might not put a syllabus here? Well, the reason is the syllabus is a document I think people look at a lot in the first few days. I don't think they look at it all the time. So I like to put that in the first week or the first unit. Because anything you put up here forces the user to scroll every time they go to the page. So if this gets bigger, like if I left those flowers all huge, you'd have to scroll just to get down to this section every time. So I prefer to keep this as minimal. And notice when I turn editing off, it tightens it up just a little bit. Still thicker than I want, but that's a sacrifice I make if I have to graph it. Okay? So, any questions about what you just saw there? How much time did I take? Okay, and we're at 16, so 11 minutes to do that, but I did stop and talk and start asking questions. I'm not very good at not doing that. If I had done this just as quickly as I could and I had a good banner graphic ready to go, saved in my documents, less than 5, maybe 1 minute per item. It's really fast once you know what it is, but the learning curve is a little bit there. But you'll see that WYSIWYG editing, you see how it's easy to move in and out and shift things up and down. And so the goal is what I'd like to do is show you a couple other things, but then as you come back in after lunch, I want to create a course for you to use as a teacher. And so you'll have a class where you have full rights, but then I'm going to give you teacher rights within this course, or one like it, so that you can kind of see what happens when a bunch of people collaborate. We are tight on time because we only have about the same amount of time to do all the other stuff. There's a lot to cover, but I'm going to try and give you an overview. So I'm going to jump out a minute and show you how easy it is to create a course. I have course creation privileges, so I go to the course home, and I go to courses, and down here at the bottom, add a new course. Normally teachers can't do this, but administrators can. So I'll say new directions, and I'll call it 26 because we created 1 through 25 yesterday. And I'll say ND 26. And really that's all I have to do. Now what I'll do now is I'll back up one and just change it. So instead of letting it finish, as soon as I feel like it's saved to the database, I just hit the back button and I change that to 27 and do it again. And you can basically do the math as to how long this is going to take. How many of you are there here? Anybody? 11. So you can see for an administrator, even if you had to create these manually every semester, and in our case we have them scripted, even if you had to, how long would it take each semester to create all your courses manually? I mean, for most schools, it's 30, 40, 50 courses. It would take the time of a good TV show, right? So in this time, I've created these courses, but I have not yet assigned you as teachers because I don't yet know who you are, but I'll do that momentarily. And so we've got now 8 courses, and I'll come back and do the others when you guys aren't all waiting on me. So those courses now exist, and one at a time I'll just assign you. So you'll be in this class as a student, and in that class as a teacher. So how would I assign teachers? Because once you're a teacher, you can assign each other as teachers or students. Right over here we have the teachers and the students links. So teachers, what's your name? David Hutto, right? So I type Hutto, or Hutto, how do you say it? Hutto. And there's him, and all I have to do is add teacher. And he's now a teacher in my course. And Bill, go there, Berger, right? Okay, and read it off, sir.
Robert Clark.
And? And?
Sarah,
Now this helps since we have a small group here. At a big school, you probably want the whole name because there's so many Sarahs. Yeah? Okay. Matt? Okay.
Ron.
Or is it Y?
That's on.
That's you? Okay.
Lee.
Which one?
Mike.
And
William Farmer.
the other one? That's what happened. Okay. So now, we don't have time for it now, but if you log out and back in, you will have teacher rights. There's one little perk is that you have to get out and back in for it to know which role to assign you. So if you hit F5 now, you should not see turn editing on. But if you log out and back in, you should. So I'm kind of bummed that you guys are leaving because we haven't got into the meat and potatoes of building things. But you know how to create courses. You said you're an admin, right? and you know how the framework works. We spent a little bit of time talking about the columns and things. So before you go, I'm going to keep you 3 minutes over, and let me just show you the layout here. You can refresh, but don't mess with it on your screen for a minute. Or actually, you can. We're going to turn editing on. Well, you haven't logged back in. You see these X's? These X's delete the blocks, right? So I can reduce this to what I would call a virgin course just by clicking the X's. It doesn't delete them, but it removes them. So nothing is lost. And I go and I can bring it down to a 0, just a 1-column layout. So if I'm looking to create a really simple course, all I do is I hide these. And notice now that my course looks like that. It's a lot more simple. But it doesn't have those tools that I like my gradebook I can't get to because that's the administration. I can't get to my participants link. I can also go in and get rid of all these, so I have it down to 1 block. So my whole course could be just this section. If you have a club and it's very straightforward, you've got a wiki and a discussion forum and a Word document. But that's all you need. So you can customize it. And a lot of people get to Moodle the first time and they feel like it's too much. There's too much stuff there. Because they go into a course that has a lot of content and 3 columns and a complicated color scheme, like these lines are visually confusing because there's so many of them. It makes it look kind of technical, even though it's just a graphic. So if you're worried about that with your people, just turn that all off and go with a simple theme. However, to do that, we have to add the administration block because that has our course settings. So when you get back, when you go into your course, you're going to mess with the course settings. And just as an example, I'm going to choose the theme, and we'll go with the metallic. Where's the metallic? Metal. There we go. So notice how this theme looks a bit different. Right? Right out of the box. Yeah.
I may be jumping the gun, but I would be here when I ask anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, wait, who enrolled the students? Who asked the students?
If it were a small operation, like I were running my own little DI university, what I would do is I'd get the students into an Excel spreadsheet and just format it according to the import file, which is basically like first name, comma, last name, comma, whatever. You just tell it how you want, like what's the first field, what's the second field, what's the third, is comma delimited or tab delimited, and then you just upload that.
You can batch enroll.
Yes, yes. Now at our school we're big and we do a lot of courses, so it's all tied. They wrote a script that pumps it right into the database, or maybe it FTPs this file or something like that.
You don't allow instructors to enroll students.
Well, initially we did. When I first started piloting Moodle, I was a one-man show and I had 5 classes, so I just created my own batch.
You can do it either way.
Yeah. So as a teacher, I did my own little batch enrolls. But what we do in this case, you guys are already in here because you self-enroll. But I could add anyone else. Like I scroll down here, say I want, Roy Bonnet in my class. It's that easy.
Can you prohibit that?
Prohibit me from adding them?
The instructor?
Yes, you can. So there's a whole slew of admin settings that we won't get into here, but yeah. Basically, anything that you can think of that you want your LMS to do, somebody has thought of already. It's just a question of whether they've been able to implement it yet. Because there are, so many people participating on it. Somebody else wants, well, I want my tests to be adaptive, but the penalty factor changes over the course of the number of times they've taken it. That's a pretty obscure thing. Somebody has asked for it. Shouldn't they get penalized more if they get it wrong the second time? But how would you design that interface? So they have adaptive testing, but they don't have adaptive testing. So there's all those levels of it. So I think I'm going to make you miss lunch unless you guys want to do a few more minutes, or we can just do it and try and get back on time. Because we've lost you 5 minutes of lunch. Is that cool? Are you comfortable with the pace? I want to get right into it, and you guys can slow me down if you need.
Before the word enroll is misspelled.
Everyone says that, but that's because it's Queen's English.
Oh, okay.
Australia, remember? So if you do the American English language pack, it takes care of that. Everyone points that out. Also notice that organized words that we do with a Z have S in England and Canada and Australia. And we're right down because we now have 300 million people. Okay? So what we want to do is I'm going to finish creating these courses, and either on your way out now, if you want to wait for the line to die down at lunch, or as you come back in, I want you to tell me your name and I'm going to give you a course. And then you're going to log. In fact, all of you should log out now. Very easy. When you're logged in at the top, it tells you you're logged in. So all you have to do is click the log out button here, and then you're out. And wait until I make you a teacher for that other course, and you log in and you'll be a teacher in both courses. Okay? Cool. So get on out. If you want me to do that now for you, I'll do that as well. And we'll see you, what is it, in about an hour? Well, I'm sorry I won't be here. Let me give you my card. No, I understand. Yes, what do you want? One of each? Oh, come on, you need one for the road. I'm program chair of databases, and I've taught a couple classes at Center for Community College. We're offering SQL Server programming admin for the first time, but we need to get that involved. Sure.
You want to start with me?
Yes.
Sarah Smith.
So I will make you 26, and I'm going to make you. Oh, you're not leaving, right?
No.
You say okay. So basically, you just under admin, I click teachers and submit, and you've got these, and I do the teacher. And in fact, I'm going to remove myself, so you're the sole teacher there. You could add Bill as a teacher to your course, or add students, or whatever you want. And so you're there.
So I'll log in the same way, but I'll see myself.
Correct, correct. And so let me go ahead and do Bill. That's 26.
One bunch of questions that I'll
Yeah,
back
sure.
early meeting.
Lots of stuff.
Thank you.
And we're going to add move me. Save.
So if I have a company that's hosting your
Right.
I can just, because it is, okay, will be hosted on
Yeah, it depends on how.
your server?
Hey Jack, I've got you. All right.
Right.
You're 28, but you'll see it when you log in. What it is, in fact, if you give me just a minute, Bill, I'll walk over there with you. Just get, so 29, we want teachers. That's what? And it's also William. That's 30.
Largest community college in the state.
Yeah, I think it's about 4th largest in the country. But you know, that's counting GED and all the different groups as well. Okay, so we've got everyone. Cool. Okay.
Remember when I went to Carowinds one time, and when I was dating, I went up and take her to Prospect, she had some spill, and I was amazed that Central Piedmont actually had their own television station that was playing on the TV.
Yeah, no, it's quite something.